The Joe Rogan Experience.
As a matter of fact, I introduced a game, I mean facetiously, but I mean it seriously, 6 Degrees of Jew. So that's a play on 6 degrees of...
Kevin
right?
Bacon.
Exactly. So I give you a calamity in the world, and you've got up to 6 causal steps to blame the Jew. So an Amazonian frog just died in the Amazon. Go. And so I will post these on Twitter, and people give answers.
Right.
Now, oftentimes they're just playing along, but that's the mindset. You got diabetes? Well, that's because the Jews who are controlling the pharmaceutical industry are not releasing the drug. I'll give you a recent one that I faced.
Okay.
So I put up a police lineup of some guys that had been caught in Huddersfield, which is a town in England, who had been grooming and raping young British white girls. And you may or may not know this. I'm not sure if we've discussed it in the past. In Britain, over the past 25 years, there's been an unbelievable industrial scale level grooming and raping of young white girls by Asian men. That's a euphemism for men of a certain religious heritage, but you say they're Asian. So their names are, let me summarize them for you. Muhammad, Ahmad, Muhammad, Ahmad, Muhammad, 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 Ahmad, Ahmad, Muhammad, Ahmad, Ahmad, Muhammad, Ahmad, Muhammad. Okay? So I put those up, and I sarcastically said, I don't have a big enough brain to do the big data analytics to understand what is the commonality across all those gentlemen. Could anybody help me? Do you know how many people wrote to me and blamed it on the Jews? Not facetiously. So now I'm going to ask you, Joe.
How?
I was just going to ask you that. How is it when 3 Muhammads rape your 12-year-old British girl, you blame it on Mordechai? 3 Muhammads lead to Mordechai. Tell me how. You tell me.
I don't know. How did they do it?
Who let them in? It's the Jewish cabal who controls immigration policy. It's George Soros, the Jew, who controls the open society ideology.
I don't think you could really just connect George Soros to Jewish if you look at his policies. He seems anti-Western civilization.
I agree, but for the Jew hater, any causal explanation.
So one individual who just happens to be Jewish,
or they point to some other one. There's one I don't even know who she is. I think Barbara Lerner or something. Somebody will correct us in the comments section, where they show her saying something. Oh, we need to flood, and she happens to be Jewish. But for every Jewish person who is pro open door policy, there's a counter Jewish person. Here's one who is not for open border policies, right? Stephen Miller, who worked in the Trump administration, is Jewish. He's probably the biggest anti-open door immigration. But that's the mindset of the Jew hater. Everything is blamed. There's this incredible diabolical feature of the Jew that they're able to at times pretend that they're victims, but really they're diabolical and genocidal. It's grotesque, man.
It's weird. It's just weird that it became so out in the open, and that's what makes me think that they're being influenced. I just can't imagine that there was that much anti-Semitism before October 7th.
But why? Why do you, the influence is coming for what purpose? Just to create havoc?
Yes. Yeah, to keep people at each other's throats. I really think so. And also to completely screw up democracy. People have lost all their faith in voting. They've lost all their faith in the money behind politics and the influence behind politics. And the more this stuff just gets brought up, the more chaos there is, the more hatred there is, the more divide there is.
Yeah.
Even amongst the Democratic Party, right, which we talked about the other day, that some large number, we think it's around 70% of Jewish people vote Democrat. But now, the Democratic Party is full on with this Palestine thing. And, you see it on college campuses, this rampant anti-Semitism, death to the Jews being tolerated, literally saying that, yelling it out.
And by the way, you can go back, so I wouldn't be able to tell you which number, which episode, but you can go back to earlier episodes that have appeared on this glorious podcast where you will see that I would have predicted exactly what we're seeing now. And it's not because I'm a prophet, or it's not because I'm so intelligent. It's because you simply have to have the power of having the imagination to extrapolate from a current trend to some future and outcome, right? So if you let into your country people who have genocidal Jew hatred as an endemic feature of their societies. So I'll give you, since people love stats. So there was a Pew is a nonpartisan, if anything, they probably lean towards being more woke. So Pew has these global surveys that they conduct. So in 2010, They conducted a survey looking at your how favorable are you towards the Jews across a whole bunch of Islamic countries. Now, if I were to tell you that 10% of the polled people exhibited, Jew hatred, you'd say, "Oh boy, that's a big number. 10% is a lot." Okay. How about if I tell you that for most of those polled countries, it was between 95 to 99%? So I know people understand what 95 to 99 means. If I poll 100 people, 95 to 99 will express very problematic Jew hatred. Okay? So now if I let in 100,000 such people into the country, it doesn't take a fancy evolutionary psychologist and a professor with a 47-page academic CV to say, well, probably Jew hatred is going to go up. So that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing the outcome of having an immigration policy that has let in people that don't share our foundational values. Again, this doesn't mean someone's going to write in the comments section, "What a hypocrite. You're an immigrant, Gad Saad." Well, there are immigrants and there are immigrants. There are tons of Muslims who want to come in here and leave all that baggage at the door. They want nothing to do with that. They just want to live the American experience. The problem is we don't have the machine that can look into your heart and mind, right? So it's a statistical game. So if you're going to let in hundreds, look what's happening in Germany. Look what's happening in France. Look what's happening in Denmark.
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think that stuff is happening? Why do you think there's this mass immigration?
So that's a great question. So it's covered partly in Parasitic Mind, my earlier book, and in my next book, which I call Suicidal Empathy, right? So empathy is a emotion that has evolved for very clear evolutionary reasons. So just like any of our other emotions, for example, envy, there are evolutionary reasons why we've evolved the emotion of envy, right? It can compel us forward. I see that Joe's doing well, keeping up with the Joneses, maybe it'll get me off my fat ass so I can work harder. So there are very clear evolutionary reasons why empathy exists. But the problem is when empathy misfires, it either becomes hyperactive or it misfires in directing the empathy to the wrong person. So, for example, illegal immigrants more important than American vets, right? And I can show you many public policies where you have these insane policies, all of which are due to suicidal empathy. So to answer your question, I think that the Western mind is we are kind, tolerant, compassionate, empathetic people. There are people out there, they're Guatemalan, they're Honduran, they're Yemeni, who don't have it as well as we do. Wouldn't it be nice if we open up our doors? So the reflex is a noble one. It's a nice one, but it exists in unicornia. The real world doesn't operate that way. If you let in people that have a huge hatred of homosexuality, are you going to have an increase in homophobia in your country or a decrease, right? So I think that's the answer. The answer is misdirected empathy across the West.
Is it really that simple? Because it seems like it's happened so rapidly that it seems like a plan to create more chaos. Because it's happened. The border policy in America is puzzling. It's baffling because it seems like there's a plan to flood the country.
So it's a sort of a conspiratorial kind of cabal.
This seems like there's something going on that's allowing it to happen, even though everyone recognizes it's a problem and it's solvable, but they don't solve it. In fact, the United States government has actively tried to stop Texas from enforcing their border.
So, but I think that's just so. I've often tweeted that the most dangerous weapon in human context is a parasitized mind, right? I mean, a bomb is dangerous, but it is the human mind that activates that bomb, right? Mm-hmm. It's a guy with a little mustache that said that Jews are the real problem in the world, and I need to get rid of the world of that parasite, right? So parasitic thinking, I mean, one of the reasons I think that book did so well is because it really explained how all of these parasitic ideas came to a head together. And they were all spawned on university campuses over the past 40 to 80 years. So one hypothesis is what you said, which is there is kind of a grand scheme that's willfully doing this. Another one is that all of the Western leaders of roughly the same age, I mean, within 20 years of each other, are all a product of a Western education, university education, that was completely infected with these dreadful parasitic ideas, so that when these leaders go out there and have the power to enact policies, they enact these policies. So my view is slightly different from yours in that I don't think that there is a supra mega, willful plan. It's just that all of those Western leaders are the product of a really shitty university system.
Right, but there's obviously two schools of thought, right? There's the left-wing school of thought and the right-wing school of thought in regards to this. The right-wing school of thought wants to seal our borders, wants to secure the borders, wants to stop illegal immigration. The left-wing wants, I don't know what they want, because they start talking about border policies being a problem as well. And they start talking about the issue at the border, and they try to blame Trump for the issues at the border, which is always hilarious.
Yeah.
But they're just so, with that kind of stuff, with blaming, like when Biden blames Trump for things that he clearly did, it's just gaslighting, right? And it just shows you how little respect they have for people's ability to understand what's actually going on.
Well, look, suicidal empathy, we can move beyond the border. How about, say, in the justice system? Suicidal empathy results in you caring more about the perpetrator than the victim. That's suicidal empathy, right? Because that argument, so here's how that leftist argument works. If a person, especially a criminal of color, commits a crime, that's probably because he grew up as a person of color, so he's already been marginalized by the society.
Right.
So now he commits a crime. You're now double whamming him by putting him in the penal system. So you need to be more caring. So he's already got 57 previous arrests. Let's give him a 58th chance. So again, I don't think it comes from really parasitized thinking, right?
Right, but those policies are supported by George Soros specifically. And he actively goes after DAs
exactly.
that have the most lenient and ridiculous policies in regards to no cash bails, releasing violent criminals. Like, that seems like that's done on purpose. That's done with intent.
But it's done on purpose. So I think where we may differ is you think it's because there is a duplicitous evil, let's cause havoc, whereas I think they actually believe that that's the noble position, right? And there should be no borders. There is no illegal human. What kind of bullshit is this? Why do you have a lock on your door, right? So why is it that I get to have sex with my beautiful wife, but all these homeless guys are sexually starved? That's not fair. That's the parasitism of socialism. We're all equal. Why do you make a lot more money than I do, Joe? That's not fair. I need to have as much money as you, right? So I don't think, I hope that it's not what you're saying is true, because then that's even more sinister, right? That there's kind of a boo-hoo-hoo. I just think it's people who are misguided in their misdirected nobility, right?
I think it's both.
You think it's both? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's both.
Maybe it's both, yeah.
I think there's definitely a lot of misguided people, but I think there's definitely a plan. It's too organized. The DA system, the DA thing with funding the far leftist DAs and then funding someone who opposes them, who's even more ridiculous, that seems to be a plan.
Yeah.
And he's got a pattern of that, and he seems to enjoy spending his money in that way.
But
I think he enjoys it. I think it's like this crazy game.
Right.